Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Sons of Sequoia podcast.
SoS number 14.
Our
Here we
14th
go.
episode. It's Tuesday, so that means that it's Movie Tuesday.
Movie Tuesday.
Should I play the Movie Tuesday theme song?
I think we should.
All right, let's do it. Here we go. Oh, what happened? Where did it go? It went away. It's time for Movie Tuesday. Okay, what are we talking about on today's Movie Tuesday?
Well, we picked this movie called The Vast of Night.
That's right. The Vast of Night.
Yeah, it was released, I guess, last year.
Uh-huh. What are your initial thoughts of it?
No, the release date was 29 May 2020.
Oh, okay. So yeah,
It was
less than a
it was
year
released
ago.
last year. Yeah, less than a year ago.
What did you say the second the movie ended?
If I remember right, I said that was a dumb ending.
Yeah, he said that was dumb.
That was a dumb ending.
But you kind of like the movie now, thinking back on it?
Well, actually, the second thing I said was it was well done.
Mm-hmm.
I think the story was told well. I mean, it was interesting. It was engaging. I mean, yeah, it was entertaining, but the ending was dumb. And actually, I guess we should spoiler it. If we're going to talk enough about it, we'll be talking about the ending. If anyone wants to watch it,
Yeah.
they don't want to know what the ending is. We're going to be talking about the ending.
Mm-hmm. I read some reviews, since we were going to review it, and one of my favorite lines was, story wasn't great, but the storytelling was. And I think that's kind of a good assessment of what was going on. It's a very sort of bland, ordinary story with an unsatisfying ending as far as you were concerned. I mean, I thought there's only so many ways they can end this, and they just chose one, so I sort of respect them for that. But I thought the middle, where they had these long scenes that were mostly dialogue driven, they were the best parts of the movie.
They were very good. Yeah, the movie was entertaining. It was well done. By the way, just to set up for people who have not seen The Vast of Night, because it was released less than a year ago, is that it was set in a 1950s town in small town in New Mexico, and they kept hearing the small town had a basketball game, and everybody went to the basketball game in the small town in the 50s, a high school basketball game. And if you've ever familiar with small towns back in the 50s and 60s, that's what they would do. Everyone would go there, and nobody would be in town except just a few people who couldn't go. And the radio DJ kept hearing strange noises, and then the telephone operator, the old-fashioned plug-in operator, kept hearing interruptions and strange sounds over the radio, and even the phone and the electricity would come and go, and then we get calls. So that's kind of the setup, and then the drama starts. Mm-hmm. And it does capture you, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. Should we watch the trailer?
Yeah, let's watch the trailer.
Okay. All right, I'm queuing up the trailer. Takes me a second. Here's the trailer for The Vast of Night.
Number, please.
Hello? Is this Lee? Large object holding over my land like a tornado.
This is WOTW Radio in Cayuga, New Mexico, and this is the news for the hour.
Now, what would you like to tell us about yourself?
I don't know.
Well, aren't you like some big science girl? Tell me about science.
Everett, it's Faye. The sound came through the board and interrupted your radio show.
What a sound.
Everett.
718 here at WOTW. We got a sound we'd like to play that seems to be bouncing around the valley tonight.
Yes, I have a story that might be helpful.
I can tell you what's going on.
The sound we heard out in the desert, it was coming from thousands of feet higher than anything could climb.
They've come here before. They've liked this place. They always have.
It is 7:45 p.m. and we may have something that'll need some what?
We followed it from Cold Canyon. Who's that? It's Everett. Stop smiling. What's he doing here? He's helping me. Stop smiling.
Get in! It's outside of town! Come on, come on, come on! Faye, come on!
Something's up there now. It's something talking. And they don't stay for long.
Hey,
Everett, take the wheel! What's going on? There's something in the sky.
There we go. That's the trailer.
That's the trailer. Yep. And it is exciting. It's exciting from the beginning all the way through. Well, the first part was kind of different because it wasn't exactly like that. But this is the middle and the end, and it was well done.
Yeah, the trailer makes it seem like the whole thing is a thrill ride, but it's not. It's
No.
Well, first of all, like you said, the movie starts off and there's these long shots in the high school gymnasium as people get ready for the game. And there's a lot of crosstalk. Everyone's talking over each other. You can't really tell what's going on. I found it annoying. I sort of started to tune out. But I think the point of that was not to give you any context or exposition. It was to show it's a small town. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody will be at the basketball game.
Still have YouTube on.
No, I don't.
Well, I'm seeing it.
I know.
No.
I use OBS as my webcam. I control the broadcast, and sometimes it seems like it gets screwed up on your end, but it's okay on my end. So, I mean, I'm looking at the broadcast right now, and I have the two of us. Do you see that?
No.
Or you just see YouTube?
Yeah.
How about now? You just see YouTube?
Nope. Just YouTube.
Well, I can't. I guess. I don't know.
So the YouTube worked well.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the beginning, it was kind of like, what are they saying? What are they saying? What are they saying? And I thought maybe the reason for that is that it was a small town and people were just all, oh, there you go, you got it. There was both of us in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was to me the first part of the movie, like you say, crosstalk. You couldn't understand what they were saying. It's kind of like just like, is this going to be a confusing movie? And we're never going to hear what they say. And it was, I think, it was just trying to create a mood. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that it actually made it more impactful for the first scene that's after that. So they're in the gymnasium, and then Everett and Faye, those are our two leads. Faye is a 16-year-old high school girl, and Everett's a young guy that is a DJ at the radio station. And they have this scene after the basketball scene where they're interviewing each other on the way to Faye's job at the switchboard and Everett's job at the radio station. And after they part ways, Faye is using her brand new tape recorder and Everett's recording her, and they're doing a mock interview. And that scene, I found that a little bit annoying, but there's what they do is they do these long tracking shots as they walk through the small town, Cayuga, New Mexico. And I think it's sort of showing off, like, look at how long our shots can be. You know, these are unbroken, moving shots so it's kind of like we're filmmakers, look at us. I kind of felt like that was the point of some of those early scenes. Very long shots with the camera's always moving. But then Faye gets into her job at the switchboard, and it's a long scene with just a single shot of her working the switchboard, and I thought that's when the movie started to get good. She kept hearing the sounds. She would route the sound from one place to the next. She was talking. People would call in on the phone. Their voice disappeared. And then, of course, she calls Everett, and they route the sound into the radio station. And then they take this long shot, and I saw them on a video, the director saying they borrowed a go-kart from a kid in the small Texas town where they shot, and they strapped the camera to the go-kart, and they had the go-kart drive across the small town where they were shooting, and that's how they got the shot of basically a rolling shot from the switchboard to the radio station. And I thought that was pretty cool. And then Everett has a long conversation with Benny, the vet, sort of giving him some context on what's going on. And that scene was great too. I thought the three best scenes were Faye's switchboard scene, Everett's scene with Benny, and the scene with the old lady. And those were the longest, like most expositionary scenes, and nothing really happened action-wise in those scenes. But they moved the story along, and they were the most compelling parts of the movie, as far as I was concerned.
The director was saying that the scene where Everett was reeling and unreeling and reeling and unreeling a reel-to-reel tape recorder, an old-fashioned tape recorder. I used to have one, and it takes a while to reel it, make sure that it catches, and then you turn it on. And so he kept reeling it and listened to it, stopping and then taking and put another one on while they're having dialogue. And that was an uncut scene. I thought that was pretty good. I was impressed with how well Everett, which the guy's name was Jake Horowitz, how he actually did it. He was actually threading a reel-to-reel tape recorder. Of course, it was a stand-up. It was kind of like a modern one back in the 50s. I don't know if they had that back in the 50s, but they had the old big clunky ones. If I remember in the 50s, but they would wound it up and then they'd take it off and put another one up while they were talking, while he and Faye were talking.
Oh yeah, at the radio station?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. I go, hey, he's pretty good at that.
Mm-hmm.
He's still doing a good job. Because I used to have a big clunky one like this, reel to reel, I used to play.
Yeah. Maybe
In fact, actually, in the 60s, actually.
Maybe the radio station had a more advanced one. Like he's telling Faye, like, your recorder's just a toy. I want to bring mine. It's more broadcast quality. And I thought their relationship was interesting. They, at the end of the movie, I guess we could go into spoilers. The part that you didn't like, they get abducted by aliens. And that's the end of the movie.
Yeah, but it's interesting, too, because at the beginning of the movie, she was just a high schooler. The switchboard operator, she was 16. That came out of the movie. He was like in his mid-20s or early 20s, and he was the radio disc jockey playing songs, But then she would hear things and give it to the radio station, and so then they connected. And so that was just a young girl and a young guy connecting. Mm-hmm. And they were maybe 10 years apart in age, but she was just a kid and he was just a young man. But as you say, their relationship changed. There was no romance or anything. It was just very curious, and both of them, very curious, wanted to find out what was going on. Mm-hmm. So they came together for this joint common desire of what is this sound? What's going on? Why are these people so upset on the phone? And why are things cutting out? And so they came together to try to find this mystery. And it was all the way through to the end. And toward the end, I guess there are people who were disappearing. And Faye went and grabbed her older sister. I forget the little baby's name. But at the last...
That part,
remember?
I don't remember the baby's name, but she has... That's her niece, I guess? The baby?
I think what was said was her older sister.
Well,
or maybe it was I don't know.
The baby was her older sister?
That's what one of the things I read said. Who was that baby? They said it was her older sister that she had in the final scene.
Her older sister's baby.
Her older sister's baby.
Yeah, her niece.
Yeah, her niece. Okay. Yeah, her older sister's baby, because her older sister wasn't taking care of the baby, so she ran and grabs the baby while they go out to this field to encounter these aliens at this alien ship.
Yeah, but I mean, her
Oh,
older
he's
sister
standing
can't be a baby.
No. I'm excited about it, I guess. But what I'm trying to get at is the final. What I thought was interesting. The final scene is that you have a young man and then a young woman standing next to him, and that young woman has a baby,
Mm-hmm.
and he has his arm around her, standing there watching the ship, and it says, "Well, they're not really together. That's not really her baby, but nevertheless, that trio is abducted as if it was a family. As far as the aliens knew, that was fine with them.
Yep.
I
thought the baby, that part didn't track for me. I mean, I guess there's a scene at the beginning where she's talking to her sister and her sister cuts out on the line. And then later on she remembers about the baby and she runs and gets it. But the whole explanation for why she was running around with the baby at the end, it was sort of lost upon me a little bit in the storytelling.
Me too. Again, I was thinking about it. I only watched it once.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the kind of movie that it was well done. I would recommend someone watching it. It's a different kind of movie. But there's a lot of things happen in the movie that you miss.
Yeah.
And if you watch it again, you'd pick things up. Like, why did Faye's sister abandon the baby? Why was the baby? And why did she go back for it at that time?
But
I don't know.
Didn't the sister get abducted by aliens too? Is that the
I don't
implication? Know. Oh.
That's the implication. That's what I need to look at it again to see. Is that what happened?
Mm-hmm.
So you miss little bits and pieces of it. There was a lot going on, but the main theme was Faye and Everett coming together, trying to find this mystery, and they found it.
Mm-hmm. They certainly did, and it cost them their lives. I guess they wanted to get out of the small town, and they did that.
That was one thing I was thinking of in the movie, and the dialogue between Faye and Everett. Faye said, "So Everett, do you ever want to leave Cayuga?" He goes, "Oh yeah, I want to go. I want to do good radio." He kept saying, "Good radio. I want to do good radio. I want to go to L.A. That's where the good radio is." And he says, "Oh, I want to do this story. It's good radio." So part of Everett, the radio operator's motivation is good radio, because he wants to tell good stories and he wants to do well so he can move out of Cayuga.
Mm-hmm.
Cayuga. And Faye wanted to leave because she just wanted to leave somewhere else, not stay in a small town because she's a young kid. Well, they left all right. They left in a spaceship.
Yeah.
Anyway.
The thing is, you said, they weren't, or it wasn't a romantic relationship, but they were, a boy and a girl. They had similar interests. They had mutual respect. They had a lot more relationship-like attributes that were actually built up and earned. You saw that, in the beginning, it's sort of like Everett's teaching Faye how to use the recorder to record the interview. By the end, Faye's making her own decisions, but Everett's sort of respecting those. They have these conversations about you should go to college, this type of thing. They built up a true relationship, perhaps more so than they do in many romantic movies where it's like, oh, I'm moving back to town, my hometown, for the holidays, and you're a candle maker, and I'm a big city lawyer, and we're going to kiss at the end, and everyone's going to clap. Their relationship was pretty earned. Like, you saw it. There was a lot of reasons for them to have respect for each other, and yeah, it wasn't a romantic relationship, but there was a lot going on between them.
Yeah, it was real.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was a real. I think the movie was well done because it was real. It was very believable. That a 16-year-old girl and a I don't know how old it was, 26-year-old young man, back in the 50s, they're not gonna be romantically together. That because back in the 50s, things were pretty darn strict back then. She just didn't do that. And you grew up not thinking that way. She's just a kid, and he's this man. They didn't have the crushes were on the movie, the TV. If they had because a lot of them were black and white back then, black and white TVs in the 50s. And I'm not sure when it was set, in the early 50s or late 50s. Late 50s, the color TVs came in.
Late 50s is what the synopsis says on IMDb.
Okay, so maybe they did have color TV, but then a small town probably wouldn't have, because they'd have black and white. Oh, the old switchboard. The switchboard where she kept plugging things in?
Mm-hmm.
And so if someone calls, they didn't have a dial. You picked it up and you call the operator. It automatically just goes to the operator. The operator says, yes, I want to call so-and-so. Okay. Then she plugs into that. Then that rings and they hold. So you call someone through the operator.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in Oklahoma, this small town in Oklahoma, Hominy, Oklahoma. And when I was a kid, they had those kind of phones. There was no dial. You just lifted it up and talked to whoever the operator was.
And the operator could listen in on your phone calls, couldn't they?
They could.
So we think Google's bad. I mean, Google's much worse, obviously, but.
And they usually did.
We think Facebook's bad. I think since the advent of quick communication, peer-to-peer communication, privacy's never really been the foremost concern.
Well, you had two-party lines too. And so you think, you call, well, two parties will have the same line coming into the switchboard. And so when this party calls in, another party can lift up the phone and listen to the phone conversation, because it's a two-party line. Mm-hmm. It wasn't one phone coming in. It was two phones from two different houses coming in, and one person could listen to the other. It's called a two-party line. So they had that too. I'm sure they had that in Cayuga back in the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
All small towns did, because that was an old-fashioned type of a switchboard.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It was very realistic.
Yeah, it's the technology sort of played into the vibe of the movie. The tape recorders, the switchboard, the radio equipment. It put you there, and it showed you, these kids, they were capable. They had a facility with technology. They wanted to get to the bottom of this just because they were curious, and they did get to the bottom of it. But what happened to them was pretty unfortunate in the end.
Got a little too close.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Now, you didn't like the scene with the old lady, right?
Well, no, the scene with the old lady was fine. But I didn't like how the scene ended.
They didn't take her with them.
They didn't, because she says, I'll tell you the story. So again, this is going to be a spoiler. She says, I'll tell you the story. I'll tell you what's happening, because I know what's happening, this old lady said. But I have a request. And so they said, okay, can we record? Yes. Well, he kind of agreed. Kind of agreed, okay, I'll listen to your story, and I'll do your request. So she told the story. He recorded it. He recorded the story. Everything was right there. And then she says, my request is, I want them to take me so I can be with my boy.
Because her son got abducted by aliens, and she's known about the aliens for years, and she says, the aliens have been around forever. They took my son, but my son was saying this incantation when he was younger. My husband used to say it too. And they were going to take my son earlier, and I said this incantation, and he looked up at the sky, and then he didn't go outside. But one night I wasn't watching him, and he did go outside, and the aliens took him. So if you encounter these aliens, say this incantation. And so not only do they not take the lady to go meet the aliens, he doesn't take the piece of paper with the incantation written on it.
Well, he did take the paper.
No, he didn't. He had to play the tape, remember?
Oh, okay.
So in the car, when those people look up, it's because he's playing the tape of the recording of her saying the incantation.
Yeah, and the the driver, not Faye or Everett, but the driver, the one who got mesmerized and mind control. There was mind control in this too.
Mm-hmm.
Remember what I said? Let's get back to the very beginning. Remember what I said at the very, very beginning? Like, oh, I wonder if this is going to be like boom, boom, boom. Area 51.
Yeah, or, Twilight Zone. They make the Paradox Theater, they call it.
Well, that was the other thing they did, which was very interesting. They had an old black and white TV screen with really fuzzy picture telling the story at the beginning.
Yeah, and they cut back to it too.
They kept cutting back to it.
And at the end, they said, this has been Paradox Theater, sort of like a play up of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah. Well, they had like Twilight Zone music, Twilight Zone type music, and Twilight Zone type stars in the sky like Twilight Zone used to have.
And they had an intro that was like the Twilight Zone at the beginning of the movie, too. You are entering an area which is not the same as the real world, blah, 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 blah. It's sort of like a Rod Serling type thing. So I think it sort of set the vibe that, this is supposed to be an episode of Paradox Theater. Maybe it sort of softens the blow because it makes you care about the characters, and then it rips them away from you. But you sort of can suspend disbelief because this is like an old-timey TV show or something. This could be an episode of a show.
Yeah. Well, one of the turning points, one of the key turning points, I think, which got Everett and Faye both really engaged into finding the answer, was when Billy was on the phone. And Billy was telling them, he says, well, let me tell you what actually happened. This happened to me and many people when I was in the Army. And it was so convincing that really got them into it, And I think Billy's on the phone. And then later, Mabel Blanche got on the phone. And then she told her story. She says, come and I'll tell you the story. But see, she wanted them to come to her because she wanted them to take her because she wanted to go back to her son. She wanted to be taken by the aliens.
Yeah, I love both of those scenes, the Billy scene and then the Mabel, whatever, the old lady scene. And when you think about it, those were kind of the most suspenseful scenes in the movie. And, and the switchboard scene with Faye, too. Those are the three scenes I like the most. And those are the scenes with the least action. The scenes where Everett and Faye are running around out in the woods, when they're in the car with those two people that were possessed by the aliens. Those scenes, to me, weren't as suspenseful as the scenes where just Billy's talking over the radio, explaining, they sent him on a cleanup crew to clean up this weird stuff, and then afterwards everyone got sick. And all the people they sent to clean it up were either black or Hispanic. And so there's a little racial stuff in there.
Yeah, because he said, I've been telling this story, but nobody believes me. And Everett says, well, why don't people believe you? And he simply says, I'm black. And Everett doesn't say anything. He goes right on because Billy was right. Because people didn't believe him because he's black. But he was right.
Yeah. So they worked in a little racial stuff.
Which is true back in the 50s. Very true.
Like if there was a hazardous waste site, they would have hired minorities to go clean it up.
Yeah.
And so they asked Billy, why are you doing this? He's like, well, because I'm sick now and I don't have anything to lose. So he helped them find a tape that was in Cayuga, and they played it over the radio, and then the aliens shut down the radio station. And that sort of sets the action in motion. Fascinating that they shut down the radio station, but not the switchboard. I guess, they have to just do certain things to keep the action of the movie going.
Well, you could argue that the radio station had radio waves, and they can capture that. The switchboard had
it's wired.
Dedicated line.
Yeah.
Wired dedicated line. And they probably didn't know. They couldn't capture that because it's a dedicated wired line. Now I'm hypothesizing.
I have a question about the couple in the car that looked up at the sky when Everett played the tape. So there's an incantation the lady's reading, and she says when she read it to her son, he looked up at the sky and then the trance was broken. That was before he got taken. Well, Everett's playing the tape of the lady, and he gets to the part where she's saying the incantation, and both of the couple that we saw it in the trailer, when Faye says, "Everett, take the wheel," they both look up at the sky. What does that mean? Were they possessed by aliens? Were the aliens communicating with them? Were they bad guys, or were they just? What's their story?
And why did the couple get possessed and not Faye and Everett?
Yeah. But were the couple sort of, oh, jump in, we're going to go see, there's something in the sky, we're going to go see it. Were the aliens leading Faye and Everett by the couple, using the couple as their henchmen?
Yeah, I don't, that wasn't clear what was happening there. But something about when you had the incantation, it engaged them and they could control minds of people.
Mm-hmm.
And why they picked the two people in the front seat, not the two people in the back seat, it's not clear in the movie.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So there's mysteries. I guess there's enough mystery to keep you intrigued. And we're still talking about it. We saw it a week ago. A week later.
I know. I never thought I would, but I kept thinking a little bit, little things. Oh yeah, this happened. Oh yeah, that happened. It was a well-told story, and it was entertaining. I say it was entertaining. Wouldn't you?
Yeah, definitely.
And would I recommend it? As long as you know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
I would recommend. It's a very good story. It's very well done.
I feel like
the actors are good.
I feel like we've spoiled the story, but the story is the least important part of the movie. It's how the story's told that really draws you in, sucks you in, and makes you think. And yeah, I would say watch it. It's great because it's a sci-fi movie, but it's not like one of these big budget, give you a headache, flashing lights sci-fi movies. It moves slowly, but suspensefully towards an ultimate conclusion, and it's only an hour and a half long. So I like that as well.
Yeah. Well, actually, you could sum up the movie in 2 words: alien abduction. And that doesn't mean you spoil the movie, because it's very well told.
Mm-hmm.
And it's suspenseful. And it's kind of like, I watch Hallmark movies. It's kind of like when I start watching a Hallmark movie, the first 5 minutes, I know how it's going to end. I just want to see how they do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you this is an alien abduction, but that's the ending. You want to see what happens between now and then.
Mm-hmm.
And the from the beginning to the end, that's the entertainment part. How they developed this was, and also, as you say, the relationship between Faye and Everett did grow.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw interviews afterward, because I kind of got into it, about Faye, the actress, the young actress that played Faye. She says she really liked her character because the character developed from a young 16-year-old girl, and she kind of developed into a person, a young woman who says, start whatever Everett did, because he was older, started questioning him. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? And she kind of came into her own.
Mm-hmm.
So the characters in that hour and a half did develop.
They did. And I mean, yeah, the story's not anything special, but how it was told, that's why it's good. That's why it's a good movie to watch. Because that's what movie making is. It's storytelling. And I enjoyed it. My interest was piqued. It was captivated.
I was surprised that I enjoyed it. When I saw it at the very beginning, I thought this is going to be a disaster, because it was just disruptive.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't understand what they were saying. I can't get into the movie. What's happening? Then all of a sudden you had a boom, the switchboard, and then silence. You had time to think, and then she would say, click, 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 hello. Click, 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 hello. And you had time to think, and all of a sudden all of that chatter went away, and then the switchboard, and then boom, you got into what is happening. And actually, I think the beginning was a device to be mayhem. Then all of a sudden, something's happening, and it pulled you right in. It was well done. I commend them for a well-told story.
Yep. I think that we've basically covered it. Is there anything else we want to talk about? Because we have a little bit more time.
Whatever you want to talk about.
I don't know. Let me take a look at today's headlines.
Well, I can't wait. I kind of like talking about movies
Mm-hmm.
because one reason to watch movies is to think about them and to talk about them.
Mm-hmm.
And we have so many movies to watch.
Well,
Today, what's happening today, David?
well, I think they're going to start the second impeachment trial today.
I think so too.
But yeah, before we go back, yeah, I like talking about movies, and I like the fact that this movie was clearly made. I mean, it had let me see what the budget was. I think they listed on IMDb. They don't list the budget on IMDb. But it couldn't have been more than $10 million, you know? It was a low budget film, and it was made into a good film by the power of storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. Vast of Night budget. $700,000, Mikey.
Wow.
That's
That's a lot of money, but in the world of movies, that's not very much at all.
no, when you think about, these Marvel movies costing $200 million, 700,000, and this sort of held your interest just as well as one of those movies did.
Mm-hmm. Very much so, because it was along the lines of the Twilight Zone. I don't know if you've seen the Twilight Zone. Sometimes the Twilight Zone kind of gets a little wacky,
Mm-hmm.
but it is interesting. You don't know how it's going to end, and but this one is much more play on character development and characters.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more of the young girl Faye and the young man Everett. It's much more on them, on their two characters trying to find what's happening.
Yeah.
And I guess I never thought of that until we're talking about it now. They found them. The aliens didn't find them. Anyway, the two young humans went and found the aliens.
Mm-hmm.
The aliens didn't find them because all the people talking, the aliens came and revealed themselves unto the humans. But so I never thought of that. That's kind of like a little bit of a twist too.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't think about that, but it did create drama and intrigue and uniqueness in the storytelling. Yeah, there's a lot of different scenes, and also I saw interviews of the director Andrew Patterson and everyone and the producers, and they said that in that small town, it was shot in Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and in that small town in Texas, it was a small town, and it was a small town vibe, and they started telling stories, and that was interesting and entertaining to me, how they shot the movie, where they went in and said, we need to do this to your town. Oh, sure, come on in, we'll help you.
Mm-hmm.
And they were so helpful and so welcoming and so hospitable. And they go, this is not what it's like in New York City.
Yeah.
Oh, well, how much are you going to pay me? He says, no. At one time they had to spread sand or something. And so the sheriff came out and helped them spread the sand,
Yeah.
So it really was a small town. Another one says, we needed something from the hardware store. He says, oh, sure. All right, just use this and just put it back when you're done. Oh, okay. And by the way, I need to go fix dinner. Here's the keys and just lock up when you're done to the store. You go, oh, okay.
Yeah. The tracking shot from the switchboard to the radio station, they borrowed some kids go-kart and they paid him $20.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of cool that it's sort of like, get it done however you can.
Yeah. And the small town vibe, they're that way.
Mm-hmm.
They're that way. Small town, sure. Everyone knows everyone. And so if anyone does a crime, you probably will find out who it is very quickly because everyone knows everyone. And because when I was young, I grew up and there was a there was a small town that my relatives lived in Oklahoma, and it was a small town. And literally, more than once, we would drive into town, drive down Main Street, the small town, drive down Main Street, turn the corner, go in the residential area, and then when we drive into the driveway of my cousin, they're on the front porch waving at us. And they go, "Oh, hi, we came to visit." "Yeah, we know." Says, "How did you know?" "Whoa, well, so-and-so from the store saw you drive in. They called me and says, your relatives are coming." And so we knew you were coming because they called us and said, "Oh, your relatives from the big city are coming to the little town."
Yeah. The big city being Tulsa.
Big city is Tulsa, Oklahoma. The little town was Hominy, Oklahoma. So we'd drive in there. And a lot of times we'd drive and we'd go knock on the door. No one would be there. And so my mother says, "Okay, well, let's go in and see if they're home." So we walk inside and say, "Hello, we're here." "Oh, nobody's here." "Okay, let me leave a note." And they go in the kitchen, leave a note, say, "We came to visit. We'll see you later." Get a drink of water, then we go home. Mm-hmm. And so no one locked their doors back then. This is back in the 50s. No one locked their doors. That's a small town in the rural America. Mm-hmm. Of course, that was Oklahoma. Well, see, this is New Mexico. Pretty much the same there too.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably the same most places. I think even in like Levittown, in suburban New York City in the 50s, no one locked their doors. It was, people like to idealize rural America, but even as long as you're not in the city, you can be in Pennsylvania or New York. You could be in upstate New York. If you're in Poughkeepsie, no one locked their doors in the 50s. But people like to think about it as like, oh, just in Texas did they not lock their doors? Like, no, it was everywhere. It was the culture of America that you didn't really lock your doors if you're in the suburbs or, the country.
And I think the reason is because in a small town, everyone knew everyone. Mm-hmm. And so everyone was honest.
Would you lock your doors in Tulsa? In the 50s? Really?
Yeah.
Because there's crime there?
Well, yeah. But we didn't know everyone. In a small town, you knew everyone. And so it says, like you say, "Well, Mary, why did you lock your door? I wanted to come in. Why would you lock your door on me?
Yeah.
I'm your friend." But we didn't know everyone in Tulsa. That's a big city. Mm-hmm. So it was different. It was different, which was interesting growing up. But everyone was honest. Talking about a small town, since we have about 10 more minutes, mm-hmm. A story I love to tell. My dad, Sequoia, we're going to always tell a story about Sequoia. This is Sons of Sequoia podcast, right, David?
That's right.
Because we're Sons of Sequoia. About a story about my dad, about honesty. He grew up in a small town. He grew up outside of a small town. But anyway, honest. Everyone was honest. You don't steal. You just don't do that. That's just part of who you are. And so he ran a grocery store, and he would always build things. And so he'd go to the hardware store to buy things from, I won't name the name of the hardware store. Probably doesn't matter. It was this 50 years ago.
I'm sure it's long out of business.
Burgess Hardware. So Burgess Hardware. And Burgess was a nice guy. He had a hardware store. And he says, "Harper, come on in. You don't have to really come and pay. And I tell you what, you just take whatever you want and you write down what you take. At the end of the week, you come in and then pay me the money." And he go, "Okay." So everyone knew Harper, my dad, Sequoia. So he'd go in Said, hi, oh hi. So he'd take what he wants, writes it down, and through the week he'd take whatever he wanted, but he'd write it all down. And at the end of the week, he'd give it to him and says, okay, and he put the prices on there and give him the money. Okay, and so you think, wow, that's really honest. And I said, well, yeah, that's honest enough. But then after a while, he says, I don't need to see your list. Just give me the money.
Mm-hmm.
Just give me whatever you took. You figure it out. He goes, okay. I says, well, Daddy, did you ever take things you didn't pay for? He says, no. I'd always give him. Sometimes I get a little bit more because of tax, I'd always give him the money. You'd never, you just wouldn't do that. That's just something you wouldn't do. That's how honest they were back then. And so you think that's really strange in this Cayuga small town where people will just let you go in and take things. That's the way it was. Because we knew who you were. We know who you are. We know where you live.
Yeah.
So you just didn't do that. So there was crime, but if it's crime, you know who it was. And so you go and knock on the door and say, why did you do that? He says, don't do that. If you need something, ask me and I'll give it to you.
So
a friend of my dad, go ahead.
Burgess Hardware was started in 1943 by Millard and Laura Burgess. Their son, Raymond, took over the business in 1972.
That's Raymond. That's him.
And he died in 2012, according to the Tulsa Star.
Well, it was in the 70s. Raymond was the guy who did it for Raymond Burgess. That's him.
So, 72, he took over ownership. So he probably was working at the store.
He was there in the 60s.
Before he owned it, yeah.
Yeah, but he was friend with my dad. My dad and him were friends. Raymond Burgess, that's him.
There's a picture of him.
No way.
There he is.
Yeah, it's him. Yeah, it's Ray. Oh my goodness. That's him. That's a Burgess Hardware.
Look at this. It was almost to the day. February 8th, 2012, his obituary.
Wow. Today's the 9th. That was yesterday.
Yeah, 9 years ago.
Wow.
Crazy. I think that it's kind of cool to mention the name of the place and then attach a face to the story. It's like, it makes it more real. That's him. That's the guy that would let your dad come in and take whatever he wanted and just write a list of what he took and then pay for it.
Yeah. And my dad would always pay for everything he took. He would never shortchange Raymond.
Well, I'm sure that Raymond Burgess didn't allow people that were sketchy to do that.
Well, he was kind of I was younger, but how I remember it, Ray would not do that to people. You saw how much stuff he had in the store. I mean, he was right on top of you. It was easy to steal from him, and he was not going to let you steal from him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was right on top of you. He was I don't want to say a grumpy old man, but he just ran his store. He ran his store. Says, don't you take anything from me. I'll grab it out of your hand, He was on top of everything. That's what I remember. Because I only went in Burgess Hardware just a couple of times. My dad was there almost 3 or 4 or 5 times a week.
Yeah.
He was there all the time. And Burgess would come into my dad's store. My dad would do that to people too. Talking about small towns, the small town mentality is that you trust everyone, you help everyone, everyone's your neighbor. You may not like them, but they're your neighbors, You steer clear of them if you don't like them, but if they need help, you'd help them.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're all in this together. That's why a lot's happening today in Washington about unity. I don't think people understand how America was built.
I saw the press secretary, she answered a question about unity very well. She was asked, this plan to sort of fight COVID and provide economic stimulus and try to get the economy back on track, it's opposed by every single Republican. So how can Joe Biden say that he wants unity when he's not having any Republicans have a say in the policy? And the press secretary said, well, when he said unity, what he said is he wanted to unify the American people. And over 75% of Americans approve of this policy. So he didn't say he wanted to unify the Republican and Democratic parties. He wants to do what's right for the people. If the other party doesn't want to do what's right for the people, well, then he's not going to unify them. And I think that's a pretty good answer. It's not his job to unify the two parties. If they're going to stand in opposition to him just because he's the opposition party, then he'll do stuff that people want, despite the protests of the other side. Because the leadership of the Republicans don't represent the people that need a $1,400 check. The leadership of the Republicans don't represent the person that wants their student loans forgiven or wants a $15 minimum wage. The leadership of the Republican Party and the actual people, they might be miles apart in terms of what they want done.
Well, unity doesn't mean you agree on everything. You can agree to disagree, but the unity that's important is the bigger issue of our country.
Mm-hmm.
And when you try to tear down who we are, that's the unity you need to bring together. We may not agree on everything, but everyone's going to support a nation that allows people to speak up and speak their mind. But you can't tear down that right.
Mm-hmm.
So unity, people are using that word incorrectly.
Yeah,
it's kind of like I think this Thursday when we have the Gospel Project, we might talk about repentance. People use the word repentance, and they use it, I think, incorrectly, not the way it's supposed to be used.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of times people use words and put meaning on the words that either stretch the meaning of the word, or sometimes that's not even what the word means, and sometimes it's the opposite of what the word means.
Mm-hmm.
It means division, not unity.
Yeah.
You agree with what I want, and if you don't, well, then you're not doing unity, but then you're creating division. It's the opposite of unity.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's a good place to stop. We can get back to The Vast of Night and say a few words. I liked it. I would recommend it. It's on Amazon Prime. And we'll leave a link on our website to an Amazon Prime subscription. That's an affiliate link. So if you want to click on that, sonsofsequoia.com. It'll help out the podcast. Do you have anything you'd like to add before we leave?
Well, it was a very interesting experience watching the movie, and I enjoyed it. The beginning was disruptive. The ending I didn't like, but when I think of the whole movie, I'd watch it again. I'd definitely watch it again, and I'd definitely recommend it. It was entertaining. It was good.
All right, let me play the Movie Tuesday theme song, and then we can sign off for the day. Here we go. This has been Movie Tuesday. It's time for Movie Tuesday. We did it. I'll talk to you in the next one. Anything you want to leave the people with?
Hey, keep on talking out there, but listen more than you talk.